Hi, Steve from Steve M Outdoors here, and today I have a quick video on the topic of what I like to term weapons maintenance for the paranoid. Just to say from the outset, this video was inspired by Kevin O'Brien, a former and retired Special Forces soldier and a true Renaissance man, who ran the influential blog weaponsman.com. Kevin sadly passed away in April of this year, but his blog is still up, and if you've never read his work, I strongly urge you to go and do so. He's got 5 or 6 years worth of blog posts, and I'll have a link to his blog in the description below. Well worth reading, and he is missed by many people. So if you're probably like me, you more than likely have a fair amount of money tied up in firearms. And if you collect military rifles from the 19th century, World War I, World War II, Korea, Cold War, whatever it may be, it means you probably must do some regular inspections and preventative care in order to keep them in the best shape possible. You do regularly inspect your firearms, don't you? Well, if you don't, you're in luck, because that's what this video is going to show you. Just basically the routine that I follow, and hopefully that'll help you out. Now, what this video is not going to show you is how to actually clean your firearms. There's about 1 million videos on YouTube on how to do so for every conceivable rifle manufactured, probably going back to the Revolutionary War, if not further. And I'm not going to be the 10,000th guy on YouTube to post a video on how to field strip and clean an AR-15. You don't know how to do that? I suggest you go and use the search function. You will find what you're looking for. So, as Kevin O'Brien stated a couple years back, and I'm going to read this because it's a great quote, inspect your guns on a periodic schedule. Twice a year is better than once. Once a month is better than semi-annually. Twice a month beats that, and weekly is good if it's practically attainable. Now, for me, personally, that means checking each firearm that I own once a month. It's a schedule that, for me, is attainable. Even that is questionable some months, but I do make the effort to do it monthly. So, using this beaten up Lakefield Mark II 22 long rifle, single shot, I'm going to show you the regime that I follow. Now, starting off, when I inspect a rifle, the first thing I do is I use a bore light. You can pick these up for $10, probably even cheaper, and for so they're rare, it's working. And basically just inspect the bore, see how it's going. Yeah, no issues, just a little dirty. Apparently I didn't clean it the last time I went to the range. And just make sure that there's no rust, no damage. It can happen. If you have access to or wish to buy an endoscope or bore inspector, if you want to call it a camera, it's a good idea. I own one. I don't have it handy to show you. I did do a video review of mine some months back, and again I'll post a link into the description. If you buy one of the cheap ones like I did, they're not great, but they do work well enough that you can actually see if there's at least major damage, which, you know, is a good thing to see. No. So it's a good idea to own one of those as well, or at least look down the bore. Now, next you want to check out the receiver and the bolt, again for any damage or rust. This is, given it's a 22, it's not going to, I don't fire corrosive out of it, so there's not going to be rust issues per se. I do clean this regularly, even if it's not clean now. So if you use corrosive ammunition, you want to make sure to check your bolt, make sure there's no rust. Even if you clean it well, it's very possible that you miss a spot and you pay the price with rust, particularly on older rifles, because they don't have a lot of the stainless steel or chrome that you can use that protects rifles. Can't get my bolt in. That's what she said. So even if you do clean it though, and it's possible that the environment itself could cause rust. Temperature fluctuations, humidity, that sort of thing. So always check your bolt and your receiver. Taking it apart, checking it bit by bit is best. Now for the stock, and this rifle has a wooden one like many mil syrups I do use a light coat of furniture polish. Now I know the consensus among many experts is do not put furniture polish on a military surplus stock because you're removing patina and all that sort of thing. I get it, I really do. That's why I don't overdo it. But I do it for a very specific reason. And you'll probably get an idea as I show you what I use. And that is Pledge, it just happens to be Pledge, Extra Moisturizing. There's a very good reason why I picked that. The Pledge itself cleans off whatever grime or dirt that I introduce to the stock. But more importantly, it re-moisturizes the wood. You have to remember that on military surplus rifles, that wood could be, over a century old. I have an 1870 rolling block rifle, meaning it's almost 150 years old, and that wood could even be older than that, depending on how long it was lying around before it got shaped into a stock. So that wood does dry out. So it's important to keep it moisturized so that it doesn't start cracking or become weak. You don't have to go crazy. Just a little light shot on a rag, wipe it, introduce some moisture. Now, something that a lot of people forget, the sling. Slings do dry out if you use leather at any rate. Again, like most military surplus rifles, even modern rifles, leather can dry out. So, what I use for that is leather care. Now this happens to be some stuff that I had left over from when I owned a car that had leather seats. Probably not the best thing to use, but it does clean and condition leather. Again, you don't have to go crazy. It removes dirt, grime, sweat, and it does recondition your leather. It's a good idea to use this. You can probably find some stuff that's more appropriate for leather. Like I said, this is what I happen to have lying around. But it's still a good idea nonetheless. Because you do want to preserve that leather, particularly if you have the original slings to when that rifle was manufactured. I do have a sling that goes back a century, and I do moisturize it every now and then just to make sure it doesn't further erode. I also use a silicone impregnated cloth on the metal bits. There's a very good reason for that. And I use the Hoppies 9 Quick Clean rust and lead remover, but it also is impregnated with silicone. The reason why I do that is to introduce a layer of protection from both moisture and the air on the metal parts. Anything with the metal, I tend to give it a quick wipe down. And it's also a good idea to use it after you've handled it if you don't use gloves with your old rifles. Because your fingerprints, if you have the type of sweat that can be slightly acidic, might not be the right word, but we'll just go with it, slightly acidic, you can actually leave a permanent fingerprint in the metal of the rifle. I know this from personal experience because I did exactly that on a Mossberg 500A 12 gauge that I used to own. It wasn't a huge loss because it's a modern shotgun, they still make them. I only used it for hunting, but it kind of clued me in that, military surplus rifles, the same thing could happen. So I do tend to give it a quick wipe down just to help it protect it from that. Speaking of protection, I guess I better keep holding this. I do tend to also, on that monthly basis, run a patch down the barrel with some oil. And that way I can protect the barrel itself on the inside, again, from humidity or temperature fluctuations, which could cause condensation. And that's basically about it. It's not complicated. You're really looking at a few minutes per firearm. An investment that I think is well worth the time. If you want to keep and use your firearms for years. They survived until you own them. If you own military surplus rifles, help ensure that they continue on in their life. That's it. And next up, how you store them is just as important. For humidity, a lot of people like to keep their firearms in a safe or a cabinet, and a lot of bad things can happen in there. To me, in my mind, the two greatest dangers to any firearm are always humidity and temperature fluctuations, as I mentioned previously. Now, for humidity, you want to have something in your safe to combat it, and I personally employ kind of a two-level protection system. I use a rechargeable dehumidifier, and you can pick them up for about $25 at a number of places, not just gun stores, but other places where, you know, they sell things that you want to keep as dry as possible. And I use also a vapor corrosion inhibitor. You can pick those up, depending on the size of it, anywhere from $10 to $50. A lot of mechanics use those. They put them in their tool bags in order to protect their tools from moisture as well. If you're not a fan of the desiccant humidifier, the rechargeable humidifier, you could also employ something called a goldenrod, which basically is kind of like a rod, and there's a picture of it right now, that maintains a constant temperature in your safe. If you're really ambitious, you can put in, and you have a large enough safe, presumably, you can put in a powered dehumidifier with an external water drain. I recommend the vapor corrosion inhibitor, though, at a minimum, because it does coat your firearms with an invisible and non-harmful layer that, you know, combats moisture. I find that it works very well. So the important takeaway from this is make sure that your safe or cabinet is as dry as you can possibly make it. I'm generally comfortable with a humidity level about 40 to 50%. Temperature is something that a lot of people really ignore. Remember that moisture can be generated by shifts in temperature. So a lot of you guys who have your safe or gun cabinet in a garage or a basement will experience temperature shifts, you know, the height of the hottest part of the day to the coldest part of the night. That can create condensation, which would lead to rust. And even people who live in desert areas, I know a lot of people who live in, like, you know, Arizona brag about the fact that they don't ever have to worry about moisture and humidity. Well, deserts get really cold at night and really hot in the day, and that could also lead to moisture and condensation. So the previously mentioned goldenrod maintains a constant temperature in your safe or cabinet. So it's a good idea to own one. Something that you might also want in your safe or gun cabinet is a humidity and temperature monitor. They cost as little as $5 or $6. You can buy electronic ones that are powered by batteries, or you can get the manual one. I use both in multiple safes that I own, and they both work just fine. Another tip, some people are going to think that maybe this is going a little overboard, is to use cotton or nitrile gloves when handling your firearms. Because remember, again, the sweat in your hands and your fingertips could cause issues. Just make sure, and a lot of people forget to do this even if they use the cotton or nitrile, is either wash the cotton gloves or throw the nitrile gloves out, because a lot of people will turn them inside out when they put them on, put them back on. Once again, the gloves are dirty because they touched the outside of them. And that's basically it, man. My quick look at weapons maintenance for the paranoid. If you liked what you saw, please feel free to like and share this video. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell somewhere down there to be notified when new videos come out. Finally, you'll see links below to my Facebook and Twitter pages. As always, enjoy the outdoors. Happy shooting, safe shooting.